Welcome to Donu'S Week, which is about what I've been up to for the past 7 days, the people I've interacted with, the places I've been to, the things I've done and not done, and the thoughts I've had. Hi, welcome to Donu'S Week. Thank God it's Friday. Let me tell you what I've been up to these past few days. First, the usual weekly update on my diabetes problem. I'm doing quite well. I mean, the first day I did without sugar was May the 13th. So bad at maths. Figure that out. That must be at least 5 or 6 weeks now I've done without sugar. And I've never once failed. I've never put even half a cube of sugar in my coffee. I did have a piece of cheesecake last weekend though. Not because I craved it, but because I wanted to know whether something that had had such a strong hold on me for so long, cheesecake, all my life, whether tasting it again would throw me into a tailspin of regrets that I was now avoiding it. And no, first of all, I didn't crave it. Secondly, when I did try it, I didn't feel like the heavens had opened and I was back home in paradise. So that's one good thing that's happened around this diabetes journey, is that I'm no longer as addicted to sugar as I once was. Okay? Carbs, I hear, are actually, in fact, in some ways more of a problem. The sort of starchy carbs like white rice and that kind of thing. I hear they're more of a problem than straight sugar, you know? But they're all, a problem. And carbs I've hardly touched. I think in the weeks, because I basically started this anti-diabetes challenge, like I said, on May the 13th. And I think in that time I've had 1 plate of rice, about 2 bread rolls, a couple of potatoes, and something called gari, which is a Nigerian food, which is it's a kind of paste you make from cassava. Well, it sounds quite a lot when I list it all in one go, but really it's very, very little for the period of time that we're talking about. And didn't miss the rice and the yams and the bread, but once in a while I thought, well, no harm, I'll just have a little bit, and it's all under control. This week, for example, I've had no carbs at all. Which is why I am not happy about the fact that the weight is not flying off me, but I am getting better. People are beginning to notice that I look healthier. Even people who don't know that I've got a problem and that I'm trying to solve it. So that's my diabetes update for this week. Now, highlights and lowlights. Well, had a couple of highlights. Went to a conference about the Economic Community of West African States, which is called ECOWAS. It was organized by a couple of, they're almost like childhood friends. Let me call them teenage friends, because I've known them since we were all teenagers studying in London. And their names are Dr. Kayode Fayemi and his wife, Bisi. And, great people. He's actually been a governor in Nigeria a couple of times. And he's also been a minister. But now he's lecturing at King's College in London. And he's very interested in this whole issue of West African integration, the economic relationships between the states, and some of the political problems we've had in places like the Sahel, countries like Burkina Faso. And so he and Bisi, Kayode and Bisi, hosted a kind of like seminar, round table, which was headlined by Gowon, former army general, who used to be president of Nigeria and was, I think he was the president when ECOWAS was set up as an economic union of West African states. And so that was a really, really good event. Excellent learning opportunity. Lots of good vibes from different. I love being in places where there are people from different countries, and that's what happened with this event organized by. I'm so sorry, the Amandla Institute, which is um, the institute that belongs to the Fayemi family. Does a lot of good work, and so it was nice to see General Gowon, who at one time in my life was regarded as a kind of adversary. Well, not as a kind of, he was an adversary to my late father, because they fought on different sides during the Civil War. But Gowon turned out to be a really special man in the sense that we lost the Civil War. And, you know, my father was apparently sentenced to death in absentia. And Gowon wasn't having any of that. So he came up with this mantra, which is so civilized and so compassionate: no victor, no vanquished. And that's how people like my father not only um, lived to survived the fact that they had been Civil War rebels, but Daddy was even invited back to Nigeria to do various senior level jobs, like he became a bank chairman and he got into politics and all sorts. So I'm fond of General Gowon, and it's nice to see him. He's now 92. And so that was a really nice event, educational as well as personally fulfilling, because it was run by people I really like. Then, oh, by the way, I need to give BC Fayemi a shout out, because when we were young, some of us were really, really frivolous. All we did was drink and go from one bar or club to the other, or party. And BC, you know, she has fun once in a while, but she was always very serious-minded, very focused on women's issues in Africa. She ran an organization called Akina Mamawa Africa. We kind of looked up to her, even though she's a bit younger than me. I looked up to her because she was so much more responsible and so much more engaged around issues affecting our continent than I was in those heady, youthful days when we were all living in London and studying. And, you know, so it's to me, she's still a triumph. She's still a great role model to Nigerian women. And so her husband, wonderful people. Another highlight was the Afrexim Bank annual general meeting, which was held in Abuja. Afrexim is a very well-known bank that has worked closely with a lot of African governments and helped a lot of individuals as well who have business ideas, creative ideas. And, you know, I'm proud to say that my first cousin, Ike's wife, Kanayo Awani, is a vice president of Afrexim Bank. And everywhere I go, really, wherever banking comes up or the Afrexim name comes up, people tell me how highly they appreciate her character, her intellect, her performance. Afrexim is based in Cairo, so I don't see much of her, but, you know, proud to say that one of the best women on the continent married into my family, and my cousin Ike is very lucky to have her as a wife. Okay, so it was that kind of week, lots of interesting people around. And so let's move on to food for thought, the weekly slot in which I try to think of something intelligent and thought-provoking to tell you or to say. Okay, so this week I want to talk about enemies and frenemies. Enemies are, of course, people who are openly hostile, people you dislike intensely or who dislike you intensely, or where the hatred is mutual. And then there are frenemies who are much more, in my view, problematical because they pretend to like you and they pretend to be on, you know, good terms with you while stabbing you in the back or undermining you, you know, at every opportunity, even to your face, but in a very subtle, sneaky way. Now, one of my frenemies is in town. I won't name her now, but I will name her one day because I'm so tired of people who are vicious, who are subtly vicious, people who, you know, first of all, they dislike me and others for no particularly good reason. Because like for them, life is an endless competition and endlessly about weighing who's important or who's useful and who's a threat. And, such people hardly ever see anybody purely in an innocent way, in an uncalculating way. It's always about, anyway, one of my frenemies is in town and she was in charge of a project that I should have been involved in because I've helped her in the past, and I'm probably, if I say so myself, I'm probably the most qualified person in the whole of Abuja to be involved in the sort of work that she does. But she made sure she cut me out of the picture, and I was so hurt because even though I've kind of known from the start that she either disliked me personally or instinctively, or more likely, she just regarded me as a bit of a threat, as someone who might, in some way take something from her, possibly even her job, because frenemies are usually very paranoid. Even if you're not interested in their damn job, they think you might be after it. Anyway, long story short, I was very angry with myself. I am angry with myself for being so hurt because nobody should allow anybody else to dictate their mood in that way. I mean, it's fine to feel bad immediately. If somebody is nasty to you, it's fine. It's normal to feel really lousy about it. But it shouldn't prey on your mind. It shouldn't be something that you worry about. And so I just want to tell all of you, if you have a frenemy in your life, let's forget about enemies, because enemies are just, they are just there, Some people have quite a few, some people only have one or two. Some lucky buggers don't have any enemies at all. But most of us have somebody who openly doesn't like us or who we openly don't like, for good reasons, often, okay? Now, I'm much more concerned about the people. Frenemies are like guerrilla warfare. An enemy engages in hand-to-hand combat. If, it's kind of, I'm just using that analogy or metaphor. But a frenemy goes, tries to get at you in subtle, sneaky ways. And I say, don't allow anybody to own you in that way, to occupy space in your head, especially if you know you've done nothing wrong. I mean, quite frankly, none of us is perfect. If you've offended someone and they dislike you for a good reason and maybe can't come out and say so openly for a good reason, then you should apologize to heal that relationship, or at least satisfy yourself that you've done your best to placate someone you've wronged. But if there's no good reason and the person just hates you and just wants to exclude you and embarrass you, then don't let them. And also, don't do what I've been doing, which is fantasizing about a time when you might get a chance to pay that person back. Because that's also very unhealthy, Forget about them. Let them go. They're evil, or they're just nasty, and if you believe in Judgment Day as Christians do, one day we'll all be lined up in front of the Almighty and everyone will get their just desserts. So that's my thought for the week, is don't allow yourself to be emotionally derailed or psychologically poisoned by people who are not nice to you, who lavish undeserving lack of respect or unkindness on you. So that's all for today. Before I say that's all for today, let me say, if you've got anyone like that in your life, do please tell me about it. Thank you. Bye.